Another coach joining us is Jacob Aven. He's been a wrestling coach for 5 years.
Yeah, the topic is, are sports parents out of control? My very first question is, have you ever seen a parent arrested or escorted away from a game?
Oh yeah, I've seen it plenty. I've experienced it firsthand. Yeah, I've been right there where parents have had to get us escorted out. So
Did you recall any incident? Like, does anything stand out? Like, what happened? Like, was there any major? Do you have any examples?
yeah, I mean, last year I went. I run a kids club as well, so we have little youth wrestlers. We went to a beginners tournament, and a parent was yelling at beginner tournaments. They also have, young high school refing tournaments and stuff, just because that's just like how it makes sense to pay money and stuff, And this parent was yelling at like a 14 or 15-year-old kid, and I had to escort him out of the gym. I had to let him know that that was just completely unacceptable to be acting like that. And it was crazy how he felt he could talk to like a kid or an official. And then I started talking to him, and everything just completely changed when I started talking to him. But it's still just unbelievable that he would act like that. So
Yeah, wow. That's so why do you think that there's a lot of hostile parents at youth sporting events? Like what do you think that is? Where do you think all that anger comes from?
I mean, probably step number one is they didn't accomplish what they wanted to accomplish in sports. Step two, I would say, is probably like just the amount of money people are paying. I know wrestling's not the most expensive sport, but these other sports, they're paying, thousands and thousands of dollars for personal training, for tournaments, all that stuff. And, if they don't see that money paying off, if they don't see the time, energy, and everyone's effort paying off, then I'm sure that causes resentment and anger towards anybody that they can unleash it at. So
Oh, all right, good answer. So why do you think, from your perspective, just because you're a coach, you're trying to do a job, and you're trying to make sure these kids are learning wrestling and they're doing it right. Why is it a problem for parents to be so angry? Or why does it make your life harder? Like what makes it a problem?
I think just like their anger, their frustration takes the fun out of everything at every single step. It's like these sports are meant to be fun. They're supposed to be like an enjoyable activity. You're supposed to grow, mature, learn life lessons, and their anger and just their frustration, the way they present themselves, stops that at every single step along the way. It's like you can't, they want to. Come into practice. They want to tell you what they think needs to be done. They're taking and I think wrestling and all sports, kids need to figure it out for themselves and like, take those steps along the way. And it's like the parents are truly like stopping the learning at every step. So
Yep. So do you see the parents' attitudes ever rub off on the kids, on the athletes? Like, do you think there's a correlation there? Do they in turn make the kids more aggressive themselves?
oh yeah, I mean, I'd say everything is a learned behavior. I see it a lot more with like the little kids and like youth sports, But so I see both sides of it. I'd say by the time they reach high school,
Hmm.
a lot of them have either figured it out or they haven't. But like, I think by the time they're like sophomores, juniors, seniors in high school, they kind of see their parents, and it's sad. They kind of like are just like embarrassed by their parents. They're kind of like, they're like, oh my goodness, here we go again. Like I've definitely seen that where kids are like, ugh, they just, and by that time in their life, they're 15, 16, 17, 18, and like, they're embarrassed by their parents. They don't want that relationship with them. The parent has ruined the sport for the kid, and then that lack of relationship and that like carries over to other aspects of life, not just sports. So
Okay. All right. Awesome. Do you think it's just like mostly sports that like because a lot of people say okay, there's a lot of anger in sports, there's a lot of hostility and stuff. But do you agree or disagree that there just seems to be aggression everywhere in society as a whole? Do you think society has just become more angry? What are your thoughts?
I don't know if it's necessarily society has become like more hostile, but it's definitely society's a lot easier to express your emotions without facing like physical, like person to person backlash. Like I mean, it's so easy. I could send you an email in a minute and just tear you apart, tell you all the things I don't like about you.
Hmm.
But I'm sure if I saw you, I mean, there are plenty of people that have sent me texts, emails, expressing negative emotions. And then I see them in person and they're, oh, hey, how's it going? Like, nothing but nice. So I don't know if it's necessarily, um, you know, I don't know if it's necessarily more hostile, but it's definitely easier to, or post on Facebook, whatever it is, it's definitely easier to get your opinions out there. And
Yeah.
then w- relating back to like parents in sports, I mean, I think for some reason, I think like parents have this like, disillusion where like, oh, I'm at a sporting event, I can act however I want to act, or like, hey, I make a jerk out of myself, but all that ends up happening is I get escorted out the gym, and it's like, they go to work on Monday and no one at work says anything to them, so like they don't really face that backlash, as much as they could and should in life. So
Okay. All right. So, where do you, as a coach, just trying to run a program, where do you draw the line between, or maybe just even as a parent? Because I don't know if you're a parent or if you have, or where would you draw the line between a parent that's trying to be supportive of their kid and a parent that's just being disruptive?
yeah, I mean, I I appreciate all the help, and like, I mean, I think it's awesome that parents want to be involved with their kids. Um, but I would challenge every parent to sit down and ask themselves what their goals are and what their kids' goals are. And if, as a parent, if your goals are more than your kids' goals, if you have, if you want this more than them, then I think you need to take a step back and really evaluate what you're doing. Because I like I've had parents that are, oh, I want to do this, I want to get involved, I want to. This is what I think needs to happen. Blah 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 blah. And then you ask the kid, and he's like, oh, I don't care. Like it doesn't really matter to me. And it's like, you know, I understand like wanting to be involved and wanting to help out your child, but if that's not what your child wants, you're just adding tension and you're doing unnecessary things. So
Yeah. Kind of going back to your point before, it makes it less fun.
oh, yeah,
Going
it
back,
doesn't make it less fun, it just makes it no fun at all.
makes it no fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it's like, you know, a parental, child relationship is that it shouldn't be valued out of how well you do in sports, or, if you got a home run or not. Like that shouldn't, at no point should that come into the equation of how a parent and child interact with one another. So
All right. Good. So, based off of what or maybe just from what you've seen or what you've seen others do, or just even your own personal opinion, what can a parent do if they know they have anger problems but want to be there to support their kid?
I mean, I my dad was very passionate about sports, and maybe it's sit somewhere else in the gym. Maybe it's I I think you know I struggle with it as well, and I don't have kids myself, but just kind of that like anger, and I think it's just if you don't like, you can watch the match or watch whatever, and then maybe you need to step outside, or, maybe you need to really evaluate the things that are making you angry. Like, I'm sure it's not the win or loss that's making you angry. I'm sure it's something else that's going on in your life that's making you angry. So, uh, I understand it's hard, and
Yeah.
like I'm about as passionate about sports as anyone, but you really got to think about like what you are truly angry about. And it's probably not the win or loss, the strikeout or whatever. So
Yeah. I agree. Oh, so okay. Last question. And it's kind of a loaded question, but this is just as from you. This is your take on this. What do you think everyone sometimes needs to be reminded about youth sports? Or maybe not everybody, but maybe a certain, maybe some people. There's something out there that maybe some people just tend to forget.
Oh, I mean, I hear it every day. I see it all the time. I tell people all the time. Like one, there's no college recruiters at at the 12U youth tournament. If we're uh, falling in love with the sport will take you much farther than a win or a loss at 12U. It's just have fun, fall in love with it, enjoy what you're doing, and like as long as you build that relationship and like actually grow, then it really doesn't matter if you win or lose. You don't even really need to compete as long as you're building skills, falling in love, learning. Then that's learning life lessons. All that stuff's so much more important than your 12U, whatever tournament championship. It doesn't. I promise you, it doesn't matter. I wrestled at I wrestled at the NCAA championships my senior year at Purdue, and no one was. I didn't even wrestle when I was. See, I come from a complete different perspective. I didn't even start wrestling until I was about 13, and so it's like no one cared at the Big Ten tournament what I did when I was 12 because I never even wrestled before. So it's like that stuff's so not important. Falling in love, building skills, like learning that type of stuff, so much more important than wins and losses. So